The one they say no living man can kill.
Slay them all. What of the wizard? I will break him.
Suit up. Head-to-toe hydraulics. Highly pressurized pneumatics.
An advanced cybernetics heads-up display helmet, which feeds into the suit. You think it does.
Twin gas-propelled grappling spears and triple explosive heat-seeking fire-and-forget rockets. My personal favorite. A 10mm caseless Gatling submachine gun, capable of firing 50 rounds per second. Fully self-contained firepower. Perfect for a couple of cowboys like you.
Hello. Welcome. Becoming Better / Brent Discord. Alright. Good to have you on the show.
Howdy.
Alrighty. Now I need to bring in the other guests. Hello.
Howdy.
Yeah, sorry you couldn't hear me. I accidentally forgot to unmute my mic. Some people came downstairs. But we have one final guest. Welcome aboard.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello, Blue.
How is
Alrighty.
everybody today?
Great. I'm personally very, very good. I'm excited for today, honestly. I think it's going to be very fun. So, what order do we want to go in?
Doesn't really matter to me.
No preference.
Okay. I'm always going to go last, so how about we go like this? How about Neph Champion first, then Brent Discord, and then Blue, and then me, and whatever time we have left after that will be devoted to a Q&A. Sound good?
Sure.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Yeah,
That sounds bad.
Why?
Oh, I don't know. It's just being a contrarian.
That's the lovely part of when you ask contrarians why. They just can't. They just say, yeah. Yeah, just because. Alrighty. Neph. Or is Brent Discord, would you care to pull up your thing?
I thought Neph was going
Oh,
first.
shit,
You want me to go?
Neph. Yeah, sure, Neph. Yeah, go Neph.
Okay.
Go Neph. Go Neph. It's your birthday. It's your birthday.
Funny. No, it's not. Okay, so what I'm going to be reading is part of the first chapter. Last week was part of the prologue. Hopefully this first chapter will make a bit more sense, because this goes from the end of the arc to the very beginning of the arc. So, and the chapter is called, You're Probably Wondering How We Got Here. November 6th, 2022. Takes place in Sword Art Online, Einkrad, first floor, Town of Beginnings. Because where else would it start? Kirito let out a long, slow sigh as he waited for his senses to reconnect. In the closed beta of Sword Art Online, he had learned that it always took 1 to 2 seconds to do so. The air was crisp, clean, everything he had come to expect from what was likely to be his favorite game of all time. Even that edge of artificiality the lawmakers insisted the designers put in to stave off hypothetical dive addiction, and the designers knew staved off any uncanny valley effects. If they got too close to real without quite hitting it, it was a big immersion killer. As Kirito looked around, the square came to life with the sound of non-player character shop owners calling out their wares. It was only a minute or so after launch, but already there were other players that he could see in the streets, probably buying the weapons and equipment needed to leave the safe zone. Focusing on them brought up the basic data, mainly name and level. More detail required skills or gear. No health points until you engaged in either combat or party. That was fine. He wanted to find his good friend Ruby first before deciding what to do next. Kirito, how does she know I'm thinking about her? He muttered to himself before turning to the voice. The girl in question had long blonde hair and riotous curls, even a pair of drill curls framing her face, and brilliant ruby red eyes. Ready to go? She asked cheerfully, when she came to a stop in front of him. She was a head and a half shorter than his avatar, and wore a rather simple tunic and pant combo. Starter gear, only slightly off default. I was just trying to decide what to do, he admitted with a grin. Good, you're free. Come on. Kirito was baffled at how Ruby could drag him around despite her character build indicating nothing of the sort. You should know. He helped her with it. Wait, what, where, why? Ruby pouted up at him. There are a few players who would like one of us betas to give them a quick rundown of how the system works. Kirito narrowed his eyes at her, even as she kept dragging him along. And when did I volunteer for this? Oh, I volunteered you, Ruby explained. One of Kirito's eyebrows twitched. Why can't I say no to you? He wondered out loud. Ruby pursed her lips in thought. Because you're justifiably afraid of my puppy dog eyes and cry cute skills. He sighed. As long as it's just 1 or 2. Oh, good. I said 1 or 2. And I said maybe a few more than that, Ruby said, batting her eyes at him. Hey, Klein. Oh, you brought Harry 1. Why, mate? Kirito lamented. Because you like me, Ruby said. Stop having valid explanations, Kirito shot back. Impossible! Ruby shot at him. Oh, hey, Asuna! Kirito? Asuna-chan. Asuna? Kirito-kun. This is her first game, and she's just got a talent for it. Nice. Wait. Kirito grabbed Ruby and pulled her off to one side. Are you telling me, Ruby, that we have a blank slate to work with? Not outright indifference to the fact that said slate can hear us, Ruby said. Kirito turned to look at the redhead, giving him an uncertain look, then turned back to Ruby. But that was the implication, yes? Of course! Yes! That meant that there was at least one person here he would not have to beat bad habits out of. And look who's hiding at the back. Kirito looked, then picked out the affable-looking avatar in rimless glasses. Koshin, you were in the beta too. I ever seek to refine my skill, Kirito-sensei. Koshin replied, earnestly. Kirito sighed and bowed his head as he heard Ruby murmur. He hates it when Koga calls him that. He heard a man, that Klein guy maybe, mutter back. Bet Koga's the only one to get away with it. Oh yes, Ruby affirmed. You people are able to help me, right? The Asuna girl wondered. Of course we are, Kirito replied. In for a yen, invested all. Kitoka here was the beta tester that was able to get to the highest floor possible before the test was over, Ruby boasted cheerfully. Klein grinned as Kirito turned back to them. Wow! Kirito blushed brightly. Ruby, he growled. Kirito-sensei, you may find it easier to maintain your tough guy image if you turn off auto emote. Yes, thanks, Koshin. So, to start, let's kill a boar. Oh, that should be easy, Harry once said, then winced as everyone looked at him. I know. Frenzy boars are not your regular level 1 slime. Kirito growled, having turned auto emote off. Now, let's go. He started dragging Ruby out of the safe zone. In the starting field, Arika, Asuna groaned several hours later. I accept the hate. I feel it towards Mitsuo. Klein's friend sighed, sprawled on his back. At least we learned sword skills and mat harvesting. Asuna leaned back tiredly, not realizing that she was leaning against Kirito's legs. I'm tired. Asuna, you're leaning on my legs, Kirito explained. Kirito, you will let Asuna lean on your legs, Ruby ordered. Don't care if he allows it. Asuna mumbled as she looked out on the artificial sunset. Wanna log off and eat pizza with my brother. Klein grunted. Gamer food, he agreed. Kirito gave a long-suffering sigh. Why did he have to put up with this? He didn't like dealing with people. Kirito? He turned to see Ruby smiling at him. Thanks. Really. Oh yeah, one of the few friends he had was an extrovert that had adopted him and liked positive reinforcement. He announced after fighting a smile, am going to log off and get sushi. He blinked, finding part of his heads-up display suspiciously empty. Where was the logout button? Ruby, he said, and she seemed to hear the urgency in his voice, even though he'd turned auto emote off. Guys, Klein managed. Anyone else missing a vital return to reality function? Did they move the logout? Harry wondered. That would be most uncouth design practice, Koshin observed. Kirito turned to look at Ruby to see that she looked very angry. He had never even seen her upset before. Son of a bitch! English cursing was another new thing. Ruby, Asuna began to ask. And then there was a light. Back in the town of beginnings at the entrance fountain. Kirito pulled Asuna to her feet once the light dissipated and looked around. What were they doing back at the fountain where all new players spawned? He wondered idly. Idly noticing Klein helping Harry one off the ground. This could not be good. Not one bit. Kirito snuck another peek at Ruby, who looked ready to spit nails. What's going on? Asuna asked, drawing Kirito's attention back to her. I don't know, Kirito replied. Ruby, do you know why there would be a forced teleport like that? I'd say we're about to find out, Ruby growled as she pointed to something in the sky. There was a red polygon hanging there, its message changing between warning and system announcement. Great, Kirito muttered as the polygon suddenly began to multiply until the sky above the square was covered in them. Kirito-sensei. Kirito's head snapped to the side as he turned to look at the redhead next to him. Why did she have to pick that up from Koshin? Yes, Asuna, he asked, very glad that he turned auto emote off. Were the polygons always red? No, they used to be blue, Kirito replied, returning a suspicious glance to the sky. He chanced another glance at Ruby. Never mind nails. Ruby looked ready to spit dragon fire. And that's all I have.
Nice, I like it. Red polygons of death.
I like it.
Yep.
Nice. Ooh, we have another guest arriving in stream who's probably going to help with reading things. Allow me to welcome her.
So there would be even more rum.
Hello.
Hello again.
You lied. We are. That person lied. We are a clean stream.
Did I cut out for like 15 seconds, or did y'all?
Might have been you.
Okay.
Also, hi, Carl. I don't think I've met you before.
Hi. Hi, Blue.
Also, hi, Carl. I think I've met you once before.
Hello,
Probably.
Carl.
Probably. Yeah, I've definitely met you, Neph, and Lord Commander.
Hello.
You can't see me, but I'm saluting right now.
Lovely. Glad to be saluted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I believe it is Brent Discord's turn, or becoming better. I get the two mixed up.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
Do you want to put up that image that I sent you?
Sure. One moment. Open image tab. Share screen. Home tab. There we go. Let me zoom in a bit.
You can zoom in more on like the Central America and Southwest, since there's not really anything up near Canada.
Alrighty.
Just like in real life.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Other than Mr. Smud.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, he's the only landmark note.
So what I intend to be talking about is So I'm working on a new RPG system, part of which involves actually writing campaigns and modules for it. So what I'd like to talk about is my perspective on how writing a big and interconnected world with which one can theoretically interact in an infinite number of ways, how that can be accomplished. So I'm writing a tabletop RPG campaign that involves the ability to accumulate power and influence in a realistic modern setting immediately following a global blackout. Today I'll be talking about the interconnectivity of plot threads and the unique problems that arise when interactivity is introduced. So my hope with this campaign in particular is that the module will provide sufficient detail to the GMs such that a high degree of internal modularity is achieved, allowing the players to do just about anything, while being open enough to also provide a high degree of external modularity. So basically the players and the GM can do just about anything they want with relative ease. So the way I look at this is from a macro and micro perspective as far as plot threads, plot hooks and plot threads are concerned. The way people typically do it is kind of via railroading. They're like, hey, this is the plot thread, take it or leave it. And that's basically the end of it. If the players don't pick up on it, then the plot doesn't progress, at least in a lot of modules, which I think is terrible writing, especially when the main strength of a tabletop RPG is the high degree of interactivity and the ability to create plot threads and cause an effect on the fly. So in order to do this on a macro scale, you need to have sufficient detail and world building such that all potential plot threads are included, that are included by myself and any homebrewing that a GM sees fit. Those all fit together naturally and can build towards the ultimate goals of the party. But since the goals of the party are ultimately determined by the players, there also needs to be enough detail such that the consideration that agency ultimately belongs to the players can be met. The campaign is built around the ability to accumulate power such that the party can affect the world around them. So they need to be able to do that in whichever way they desire. They also need to be able to completely ignore it if they desire. So, for example, sorry, the examples come later. So more than that, there needs to be a canonical or default events that occur if certain elements of the world around them, if certain elements of the world around them are not changed or affected. These events need to be viewed as outcroppings of the motivations and capabilities of the other entities that make them. The bigger the entity, the more significant changes are required to alter the course of events. Furthermore, each entity's motivation and capabilities need to be well defined enough that the balance of power can be visualized, and the creation of a power vacuum must be recognizable enough that the GM can fill it with another entity, be that the players, an entity with whom they hold influence, or whom they oppose, or some entity with whom the players have no affiliation. In the most general sense, this means that the party can decide to collect all the Cheerio boxes in the world, or I messed up that joke. This means that if the party decides to spend their time collecting all the Cheerios boxes the game could offer, they can, but they will have little to no power to affect the course of events to come. It also means that if the players make significant enough change, like toppling the federal government, then then that needs to cascade to the position of every other entity in the game. From a micro scale, what this means is there needs to be enough threads with enough wiggle room such that the order in which they're executed doesn't cause railroading. These threads not only need to be interconnected, but must appear, disappear, and reappear based on character action. The entities from whom they give and take orders need to reflect the level of power they possess, as do the entities that are considered their peers or competition. These threads need to be tiered such that following them feels sufficiently consequential in terms of how the players have affected the world, how much closer or farther from their goals they are, and how much in-game resources they have gained or lost based on their decisions and the efficacy with which they carry them out. This includes tangible resources such as food, water, guns, and ammo, as well as intangible resources such as influence. Now, I say consequential instead of rewarding because they should not inherently be rewarded for progression through a series of events. They should be rewarded, punished, or neither based on cause and effect, hence stakes. It's important, however, to consider that there's a negative experience that could come with highly elastic gameplay, so inertia is an important consideration. Big punishments and rewards follow big fuck-ups or triumphs. Also important when considering and or executing the progression of these threads is that the players are also rewarded or stripped of tangible and intangible tools reflective of their position. We don't need to give the players a tank for helping Granny cross the road, and we don't need to take it away from them, take away an army from them for killing Granny. Ultimately, what this boils down to is the consideration that players get to choose their actions and therefore determine the cause component of cause and effect. The GM determines the effect, and their ability to do so intelligently is based on the clarity with which the structure is defined in the campaign and the ease with which that structure can be adjusted. That's me. What you're looking at here is basically the foundation for the political campaign. It involves a global blackout in a modern realistic setting. So partially what I've defined, you can see there is cartel territory, and the darker the color is, the more influence they have there. And then you can't really see it in this picture, but all those markings are U.S. military bases, including Air Force, Marines, Army, and did I say Air Force? And Navy, there you go. And also, what's it called? National Guard bases. That's all that I put on this map thus far.
Seems very in-depth.
Cool. Yeah.
Put a lot of thought into it, clearly.
Although I've got to say, I would totally take away a tank for killing Granny. That's just rude.
I feel the same, but it sounds like it'd be really cool.
Yeah. Boo, boo, boo. So that was just for as far as plot is concerned. There's whole other considerations that are involved with theming in an interactive environment, such that you're not railroading the theming, and the theming also has to be adjustable and representable when with the consideration that the players affect whether or not the events that cause the themes to come about are have even taken place.
Oh, look, Shiny's here.
Woo! Hi, Shiny. Lovely to see you, my friend.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've got like a huge document with details, but I had no idea how I was actually going to share those, so I just decided to talk about my theory crafting on how to construct a campaign and why detail is important, what details are important to do with regards to allowing maximum interactivity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really cool. Seems like something you could get a lot of depth out of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I have a stupid zombie campaign where it's just a regular ass campaign, but yeah, this is the complicated one.
I very much approve of zombie campaign.
Not my thing, but listening to the way it's set up is always interesting.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate, a larger scope than a lot of tabletop RPG campaigns that I've heard about. You know, I'm very much a sucker for geopolitics. So
part of it is also part of my problem with a lot of RPGs is that basically the only way through which you progress the story is through killing someone or beating someone up or like some sort of action. While the action, I have put a lot of detail into actually constructing realistically abstracted combat system. I don't think that it should be the only means by which people progress the story. So in this, you can gain influence through violence, but you can also gain it through basically any other means. Like I said, if you want to collect Cheerios, you can, but
yeah, I've always I find a lot of, especially I'm a bit of a history buff about the 20th century, and the particular of interest was the whole Second World War. And of course, when you start off learning about the Second World War, you always go about, oh, here's this battle, and then there was this battle, and then like a list of names that people fought here, and then they moved on and fought there. But after a few years just looking at dudes killing each other, you start to realize that the real meat of the drama behind the whole conflagration is the logistics. The guys behind the scenes, not necessarily shooting the guns, but moving the people into place, moving the supplies, moving the fuel, and keeping the whole machine going.
Correct.
I'd be more interested in World War II if the History Channel didn't show their documentaries on it back to back every single summer.
To be fair, PBS also has documentaries, so you could switch over to that.
Yeah. Honestly, there's a whole YouTube channel of really, really good documentaries called Battlefields, which go into a whole bunch of the battles. You know those?
Yeah, those are the PBS documentaries I was talking about.
Oh man.
They took a bunch of them off of YouTube. I don't know why.
Yeah, they always do that. Something.
I have them.
Probably
on,
something to do with.
I have them on Blu-ray.
Oh,
awesome.
Good man.
I have them on Blu-ray though. But yeah, so closing thoughts with regards to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just it's off topic. Go ahead. No, it was off topic. Go ahead.
Oh. Well, we're already off topic, so I could do my closing thoughts after that.
Oh, I was just going to say I was just mad that they took BC Battles, a lot of BC Battles videos down, because I liked watching that documentary series on YouTube, and now I have to pay to see it.
Ugh.
But yeah, continue.
Yeah. So closing thoughts. I mean, like, part of the reason why it's so important to me, so there's a couple things important to me. Part of what I wanted to do was realistically abstract combat, because most RPG combat systems are garbage, especially ones involving guns, and ones involving an initiative system. But more than that, with regards to this campaign in particular, my biggest problem with most RPGs is that combat is the main means by which progression is found, and so I think that combat should be a tool. It's not the only thing, and I think that games like KOTOR 2 have a lot taken away from them because violence is the only means by which you can progress. Like, for example, on Onderon, you're walking around trying to solve a case, and they have no clue how to add conflict, even though the conflict of solving the case is interesting. For some reason, they think that you need to kill several parties of goons while solving the case in order for it to be interesting.
No, solving the case sounds interesting enough to me.
Right, exactly. But they think that they have to throw bodies in the way of you in order to make it interesting. And more than that, you potentially have force powers that allow you to stun and subdue people, but that's not one of the ways that they let you solve the problem.
It's at times like this that I really appreciate, a game like Mass Effect, which allows you to sidestep a lot of the certain, not everyone, but certain elements of combat. By
the Perion route, probably.
System. Yeah.
Yeah, and like on Theros, you have is it Theros, or am I thinking Magic the Gathering? Thoros, whatever. You have the potential to get gas grenades to subdue all the people of that colony because they're infected they're zombified. They're not in control of their actions. Whereas in a lot of RPGs, you just kill them because they're in the way and they're attacking you, and so you have a thin justification for doing so. The consideration is that they're actually people. So I think that's an important thing to consider when we're constructing interactable scenarios.
Yeah.
But like I said, if you want to beat them up, tie them up, and steal their Cheerios, you should be able to. If you want to reason with them, you should be able to at least try.
What do you have against Cheerios, man?
Oh, I just think it's a hilarious example. I make myself laugh. That's all that matters.
And if you want to persuade them out of their Cheerios, you should be able to do that too if your persuasion is high enough.
There you go. And I also think that it shouldn't be based on necessarily a skill. I'm still working through how convincing will work without having it explicitly be a skill. But there's a lot of things that I have to keep working out to make it intuitive, but also more accurately reflect reality. Anyway, that's it for me. If you want, I can come back and talk about theming, but that's for another time.
There's some nonsense going on in the chat. Utter nonsense.
I am incapable of paying attention to two things at once. I'll go back and read it.
Oh, it's basically talking about...
skill.
Oh, it's basically just Shiny saying that he's married to his blaster, and then my remark was this.
Yes.
Well, he is married to it, so he could theoretically holster it somewhere in some other hole.
Oh, goodness.
And you objected to my rum joke at first.
I objected to no such thing.
I didn't object to the rum joke. I just said we don't have any. We are a sober stream.
Also, I was talking about a holster. I don't know where your mind went.
Are we indeed?
Well, I don't know. I know Yokai and Neph and Crow were very drunk while watching Mr. Benioff's what was it? It was either the Brown Women Are Hot or the Austin Film Fest one. I remember that Yokai just exploded at me and said, "Get the fetch out of here." Or when I said, "Oh, they're two siblings that are screwing right next to their dead son's body." Alrighty, Blue, I believe you're up next.
Yeah. So, can I borrow some of you lovely people's voices?
I'm game.
Okay. Okay. I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to, Neph.
Oh no, I'm down for that.
Okay, well, that works then because there will be 4 voices total. So some of you might know a while ago, LitDev opened up his Dr. Alpha universe and said, hey, if you guys want to do short stories or short comics and submit them, feel free. So that's what I did, and what this is definitely a jump into something new for me. But so we've got 4 different characters. Neph, if you could read the girl. And then
Sure.
I wanted to be the girl.
Hang on. Is this a document we're reading from?
Yeah, I'll pull it up in just a second.
Okay.
Let's see. Are you wanting to read one of them too, Becoming Better? I can just sit back if you guys want.
Oh, I will if you want me to. I'm not particularly inclined one way or the other.
Okay, well, sure. I'll let you do that. Let's see then. At the end, there'll be a voice coming out of a radio, and if you want to read that, and then we'll just keep it simple. Let's see. Dunn, if you could read the white-haired guy, and then Carl, the guy with the black hair. And let me see if I can share this. Read the girl.
Very funny, Shiny.
What a
Very
conundrum.
funny.
Let's see if it'll let me. Oh, it looks like it's gonna. It didn't last time I tried this. It was like, nope. Do you see it backstage, Dunn? Is it actually showing up?
Yes, it is.
I do not.
Oh dear.
Oh, is that even gonna be readable?
If you could If you could zoom in.
You could pop it in Discord.
Yeah, that would. It would probably be easier for some of us.
Oh. Okay.
You can go down this way, I guess, yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to be reading the guy in the panel right under.
Yeah, this dude.
Okay. Cool.
Help me!
Done. I think that's you.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I'd be careful with that one if I were you. She's not as friendly as she looks.
Yeah, and what about you?
I'm downright cuddly, so long as strangers know when to mind their own business and walk away.
She's got a pretty good grip. Not sure I could walk away if I tried.
Sorry.
Lucky me, a hero.
Nah, it's pretty clear. The heroes have made it pretty clear I'm not their type.
I can see why. You're way over your head, kid.
Don't worry. You only cut me as deep as I let you.
Done. You just got fucked up.
Beware my deadly Steve Bloom impression. You okay?
You killed him.
He was trying to eat me.
You're a monster.
Yeah.
Wait, you read eat me? It says kill.
Trying to...
Where is your mind at?
No. I woke up at 1 o'clock this morning. It's past my bedtime.
Oh, wow.
You gotta leave room for actor interpretation, right? I mean, you know.
Who knows? He was an abomination. Maybe he was. Maybe that was Jeffrey Dahmer come again in the flesh.
Yo, real quick, since we're off topic already, I had a bizarre morning. So I got woken up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock by some serious ass thunder. And then when I went back to sleep, I woke up like 5 times with sleep paralysis, and I kept having this, like, you know how most people have like hag syndrome or whatever, like that there's like a hag or whatever just out of sight controlling them. I had like this weird thing that like a security officer was behind me, like tearing through my room, and I couldn't move. And it happened every single time I woke up, and I woke up like 5 times. It was ridiculous.
Oh goodness!
Wow.
I almost never have sleep paralysis. That's like the second time ever, and I had it 5 times.
Mm.
Anyway, let's go back to eating people.
He was trying to kill me.
You're a monster.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, I didn't do this voice. Okay. William.
You again. I already told you I'm not interested.
You did, but then I heard about your rather public disagreement with the Crusaders, and I thought I'd remind you that our offer still stands. Your power may not present the best optics for a hero, but it could make you a very successful villain.
Fuck off, Sonata.
Okay, and then Brent, the lined
this is me.
dialogue is you, yeah.
Okay. How'd it go?
He told me to fuck off.
So you lost him then?
No, I expect we'll hear from him soon.
What makes you so sure?
He took the card. Okay, and that's the end of that. So,
Cool.
4 pages was an interesting amount of room to try to do something in, but yeah, that was my attempt.
Interpretations across the board.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. I didn't realize it was a mugger. I was just reading it as like a cold psychopath was.
No.
So another term.
Sounded awesome.
So in other terms, your natural voice.
Yeah,
Womp womp.
pretty much.
Well,
Yeah,
This is the sort of thing you run into with cold readings. There's some details that might not have been communicated during the story that you end up being revealed later.
True.
yeah, just a mugger dude. Okay.
But it's all
What?
part of the interpretation. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, though honestly, Carl Saylor's voice is designed like Richard Armitage's to make women pregnant.
Oh God.
You do have a fun voice, Carl. If you ever want to, I do a thing where I read fairy tales and I draw pictures with them. If you ever wanted to guest narrate and read a fairy tale for me, I'd be down.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Hit me up on Discord after this is finished. We'll exchange information.
Sure
Slide
thing.
into his
Be a
DMs.
VA.
Sorry, what?
You should
Said-
be a VA.
Said slide into your DMs.
Oh
Yeah.
god.
Voice actor.
Just slide up in my DMs, as Mary Mayhem
That's the
would
thing about
say.
being a voice actor. That takes it takes a lot more equipment that I really don't have. You know, this is, I mean, this. I don't know how this quality sounds, but this is a C-1U, and it's several years old that I'm talking.
It sounds good.
Yeah. Well, and I mean more than that, you have a really good vocal range. So
Mm-hmm. Yep. You
Like,
certainly
I-
do.
I heard you read your story last week. I think it was too. So
Yeah, yeah, that was really cool.
Mhm.
I have to say that your Michael Kramer impression was spot on.
I certainly enjoyed your reading last week.
Yeah, I imagine you did, Miss Neff. Okay, let me try to find. I'm trying to select something. How about the one where Mr. Roundhead gets his comeuppance?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
comeuppance are always fun.
Yes, they are.
Let me
second the motion.
find it.
I reject Sailor's second. Now you only have one.
A contrarian.
A contrarian to the last. So you have chose. I need to clip the. So you have chosen death. Line.
No,
from
better yet,
Lord
do
of the
the
Rings.
get the Python sketch. Hang on, you're just contradicting me. No, I'm not.
Oh, God, Shiny, no. No.
Balanced as all things should be. What?
No. Don't reference that, please.
I think Shiny is
okay.
wrong. I think the
Okay.
imbalance is better.
Okay, I am. What is this?
It's a very strong
Okay.
emotional reaction. That's just a reference to Thanos, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there's something is okay.
was,
Shiny, will you
and it
come
was
on and tell
beautiful.
the story?
You don't need to. It's a reference to the new Force lore.
Oh, that. Oh yes.
I'm unaware.
I
You should explain.
Oh, the really, really stupid thing where they're saying that, oh, powerful light, powerful dark.
Your yin-yang symbology is uncreative and not wanted because that's not what the Force is. I'm sorry.
I think there was
That's not how the Force works.
I think it was a huge
Exactly.
missed opportunity to do the whole Grey Jedi thing.
Yeah, there was.
You know, actually, when I heard that first saw the trailers for The Last Jedi, and I heard that, you know, it's time for the Jedi to end. You know, you have to balance these things out. My first thought, and I'm probably the only person in the world who was thinking this, but
It was the Saga of Recluse.
Yeah, you're the only one.
I have
Well,
not heard of that.
At least I've had it confirmed, so that's good. But the thing is, because in that universe, the magic system is based around order and chaos, and there always has to be balance. If you add so much order, it adds so much chaos somewhere else in the system. So there's like this one island that is basically just all steeped in order. So whenever it increases so much order, it causes chaos elsewhere in the world, and eventually they realize, we're causing more problems than we're solving, and they have to deliberately restrain themselves. But they don't realize it at first, and it takes place over centuries, and you just see, and the story unfolds across multiple books with characters who are busy living their own lives in the meantime, and you just see through these individual threads of story this greater picture of this world just coming together. But unfortunately, Ryan Johnson has not read that book. So
is that a Star Wars book or?
No,
I doubt it.
It's its own thing. It's L.E. Modesitt Jr. It's its own fantasy series.
I gotcha. Well, even within the Star Wars universe, there's like room for that whole thing. I mean, Kreia talks endlessly about like echoes and ripples and whatnot. So, like, that's kind of more what I imagine when I think of balance in the Force, as opposed to if there's a big Sith guy, there has to be a big big Jedi guy, and vice versa.
That's not how the Force works. The way George Lucas explained it is that the dark side is a cancer on the Force and balances no Sith.
Which is really a good plan. And
yeah, because Sith invite...
And there are some idiots online that don't believe that, that believe just like Disney.
The way that I've seen it broken apart probably the best is that the Sith is kind of like Nietzscheism, and they kind of think that there needs to be an Ubermensch, essentially, where you yeah, Nietzsche. Everyone anyway, everyone has their opinions on that, but whatever. Is essentially that through pleasure and through self-improvement and through attempting to make yourself as great as possible, essentially, that you can, and the dark side is easier to do that, so that's part of doing it and not limiting yourself. So that's kind of there, whereas the Jedi, I'm not speaking very eloquently at all, but and the Jedi is essentially more about like kind of the Buddhist philosophy, where the lack of action is kind of valuable in and of itself, because you can see where all the threads lie, as it were. But the Grey Jedi kind of see it as both of those are kind of stupid, because you're not actually solving any problems by doing that, and you're giving into the worst instincts of both of those.
The Jedi are not about lack of action. They're about negotiation first. And they only use their lightsabers or other such things if negotiations fall through. As Padme said, aggressive negotiations.
So I have the section ready.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Alrighty.
I'm gonna shut up now then.
John Fenris was holding court with Elias at his side when Richard marched into the room, flanked by 2 guards. The young boy looked different than when he had left. Richard's eyes had become even harder than they had been, his cheeks more sunken. He wore armor as comfortably as most men wore velvet, and the sword at his side seemed a part of him. In his hand was a rolled-up parchment, the golden dragon seal emblazoned on it. "Father," Richard nodded his head toward John, eyes cold. "Brother?" He glanced toward Elias. "Richard!" John grinned, and standing up from his seat and walking towards his second son. "I heard the news of your knighthood. I'm so proud of you." Casually, Richard held up the parchment. "Read this," he said firmly. Aloud. Confused, John frowned at his son's cold demeanor. What is going on? Discomfort roiling in his stomach, John opened the letter. Until such time as the North is in order, he read, I appoint Prince Richard Fenris as acting Lord Marshal of the North and give him full authority to dispense justice as he sees fit to those who break the king's peace. Gasps as filled the hall, though some of the men nodded slowly. Clasping his hands behind his back, Richard started circling the room. My lords, he began, for too long this land has been racked with lawlessness, unrest, and weakness. He turned that flinty gaze on John. Despite himself, John backed away from his son. Richard continued, I intend to change that. Deliberately, he walked to the throne and picked up their ancestral sword, Terror. John kept the weapon leaning on the side of the throne, not really using it, just keeping it there because of its importance. Richard unbuckled his own sword and said to the side replacing it with their ancestral blade, I mean to purge this land of bandits, marauders, and raiders, as well as any who will not honor their oaths to my house. Richard, John began, what had happened to his son? His son raised a hand, but it was his hard black eyes that made the words choke in John's throat. Clearly dismissive, Richard looked around. What lord or lady among you has had his interests damaged by bandits and thieves, towns burned, caravans of our silver and steel stolen by filth? He demanded, hard black eyes like onyx pebbles. No more. I've already made a beginning of removing the stain of lawlessness from this land. He motioned to the men next to the door. One of them raised a blood-stained sack, opening it to reveal a severed head. Everyone in the hall gasps. You will see more of my work cleaning up the bandits lining up the winter road. Richard's voice held no emotion, just coldness. Bandits will no longer be tolerated in the North. Those who burn and ravage will no longer act without consequences. His eyes swept across the room, causing everyone to shift uncomfortably. We're done for the day, Richard stated flatly. Come again in the morning. I need to speak with my father. In a rush, the people ran out of the room, leaving the three Fenris men alone. Richard, Elias said quietly, what have you been doing? Richard's smile had no humor. Doing my duty to the realm, brother, he remarked, motioning that followed him to the window. John's jaw dropped. The rest of the guards he'd sent with Richard were in the courtyard, stringing up a number of men in filthy armor and crude clothing. The bandits began kicking as they were hoisted up on the gallows, then slowly suffocated. Richard clasped his hands behind his back. This is your fault, father, he said quietly. John's mouth hung open, unable to speak. You let the rule of law slack in this kingdom, Richard continued. These men saw that they could kill and steal with impunity. I had to correct that belief for you. Richard, what has happened to you? John whispered, staring at Richard in horrified awe. What have they done to you? Nothing. Richard's black eyes were disturbingly free of emotion as they gazed into John's. I am what you made me. Because of your weakness, your indecision, and your lack of backbone, I had to step up and do this for you. My boy, John put his hand on Richard's shoulder. But the people are safe from being murdered in their beds over their silverware. Richard brushed John's hands away. We had to deal with 4 bandit groups attempting to raid farmsteads on our way here, and 2 more that had burned it before we got there. Those eyes, cold, hard. No boy of 17 should have eyes like that. 20 innocent people were burned alive because you didn't have the stomach to show what wolves do to their enemies. Shame curdled in John's stomach as he looked down. Spare me your excuses. Richard cut him off. You've done nothing but sit and watch the land burn. I'm done stomaching this. Casually he turned eyes to his older brother. Send ravens to everyone who owes us money, he commanded. They must either pay or send us hostage as collateral. Richard, they will rebel. The loans are in writing, are they not? Richard raised an eyebrow. Well, yes, but no buts, father. The address was laced with so much contempt that John crumpled in on himself. By contrast, Elias bristled. You can't just talk to father like this, he demanded his brother. You should apologize. Why? Richard asked coolly, hand caressing the wolf head pommel of the sword. Elias blinked and tried to speak. Because he's your father. When a king does nothing while his people die, and when he could have prevented it, he is neither a king nor a man. Richard gave his older brother a cold look. Send the ravens. Now. Elias and John left. What did they do to him? Elias muttered to John. I saw traces of this in him before I sent him away, John said quietly. I hope his harsh measures don't earn us the ire of the nobility. Ryan Odenstar read the letter lining out the demands that Richard Fenris had outlined. Supposedly, the middle son had been named acting Lord Marshal. So this wolf cub thinks he can bear his little fangs at us, his wife Kathleen remarked, taking the handing it over. I'm surprised he didn't call me Roundhead, Ryan said softly. Kathleen's mouth tightened. So, shall we call my brothers to help cow Prince John? Michael and Aaron would be happy to aid us. No, I'll go myself with a retinue. Ryan stood up. I'll cow them myself. 4 days later, he reached Snowhold. It wasn't Prince John who met him outside the castle. It was Prince Richard atop a black horse, his wolf at his side with an group of armed guards. The prince's eyes were cold as he pointed toward Ryan. Imprison this rebel. Ryan's guards were about to defend him, but the prince's men raised crossbows. Grimacing, the Lord of Valahar raised a hand to call all his men in treason. Richard shrugged. I imagine that your family will pay back what they owe to my house with you as our hostage. Ryan had barely time to act before he was seized by men wearing the Black Wolf badge on their surcoats and dragged to the cells along with his soldiers. Do you see this? John held up the letter. Lady Kathleen has threatened rebellion against us if we don't release her husband. He's our hostage, ensuring that they pay back the debt they owe us, Richard said calmly. Why was his father so weak? Could he not see that Kathleen was trying to cow them? It was a pathetic attempt. They had nothing. I'm going to release him, John said firmly. No, Roberts protested. Richard already imprisoned him for treason. What kind of message does this send? And if we release a traitor? I will not cause a war, John declared. This is not negotiable. In order to solve this problem, I will forgive his debts. That way he won't have committed treason. Richard shook his head. I knew you were pathetic, but this is a new low even for you, father. I'm being generous, Richard, John protested. You are a lickspittle and a coward. Richard didn't shout. He didn't need to. His father flinched back from his icy tone. They're threatening to break the king's peace. We are within our rights to put down this rebellion. A sudden thought occurred to him, but he didn't voice it. A brutal, vicious thought. Maybe this was the best option. I am still prince, John insisted. I'm overruling you, Richard. You've done well, but I will not risk war. Very well. Richard hid his lack of emotion behind a scowl. I will wait. And then I will rain bloody vengeance upon my family my enemies for what they have done to my family. This has all been a misunderstanding, John remarked as he allowed Ryan to lead him into the main castle of Valahal. I'm sure. Ryan patted the other man's shoulder. What a coward he is. Not like that cold-hearted, old-eyed son of his. I wonder where John found the backbone necessary to make him relent. The eldest son, Elias, was with his father, but Richard and Robert were conspicuously absent, probably sulking at being overruled. Ryan thought with slight pleasure. Well, I have no hard feelings against you, my friend. Ryan clasped his prince's hand. I look forward to continuing our friendship. May it last forever, John grinned. putting his hand on Ryan's shoulder. "Come, let us feast," Ryan offered, motioning his prince toward the table where a collection of food awaited. Richard allowed the lull before the storm to last 2 months. During that time, he rallied his troops under the pretext of hunting bandits, though he kept the Southron Knights a secret. Once he was ready, Richard sent personal messages to both Odensar and Tyre, commanding their presence at Snowhold to answer for their crimes. Once the reports came in that they had risen in rebellion, Richard sent out messages to the wolf pack. Garm, Skull, and Hatia all responded to his call. When he and Robert rode from Snowhold, they had 7,000 troops at their backs. They didn't bother to inform their father. "They're marching toward us, the scout report, and they're coming in fast." "What? What?" Ryan demanded, shocked at the quick reaction from the Wolf Club. "How did he marshal his troops so fast?" "We should hold up in the castle, at least until my brothers come," Kathleen suggested. "No, we need to defend ourselves now. We only have our household knights, and useless in a siege." Ryan motioned to his scout. "Tell my armors to get my armor ready, and tell my men know we ride against this wolf pup." Robert and Richard were nearly at Valhall at their army when they saw a small force of heavy cavalry riding toward them. As they approached, Richard smiled. There couldn't be more than 600 troops. "Robert," he remarked, "are you ready for your first battle?" "Yeah," Richard, his younger brother, said grimly, drawing his sword and preparing to spur his horse forward. Richard halted him. "Wait, brother," he instructed. "Pikemen, form up. Cavalry, prepare to charge." "Richard," Robert frowned, "what are you planning?" "I'm going to kill them," Richard said quietly. "And I want to do so in the most efficient way possible. I'm going to funnel the cavalry into the pikes using our knights, as well as frighten the horses by sending the wolves forward. Then, once they begin to break, we encircle them and kill them." Robert nodded slowly. "I'm with you, brother." Casually, he glanced toward the Odensar troops. "The Roundhead is mine," he said quietly. "I want to earn my knighthood, just like you." "Very well," Richard agreed, turning his horse. "Take your half of the cavalry to the left. Charge only when I give the signal." Grinning, Robert rode off to take command of his men, bearing banners emblazoned with a raven clutching a spear. The Odensar troops charged forward, but Richard didn't intend to send his horsemen directly into the enemy. At least, not in the usual way. Richard spurred his horse forward, leading his cavalry right at the enemy. But not quickly. They needed to preserve the energy of the horses. As the Odensar troops approached, Richard waved his lance at Robert. The younger Fenris brother signaled to his men, then charged to the side, just as Richard did the same. The Fenris cavalry divided in half, creating a large gap for the enemy. The Odensar troops charged right through the gap, straight into the pikemen. Screaming, the enemy splintered themselves against the pikes, the front horses impaling themselves on Fenris spears, the middle ranks crashing into each other. Once they were disorganized, Richard turned his horsemen and charged, just as Robert turned his own force into the sides of the now disorganized cavalry. Grunting, Richard took a firm grip on his lance as fury drove into the midst of the enemy. The impacts of the lance slammed into the chest of one of the enemy horses, just as Richard's black destrier slammed into the other animal, killing it instantly. The force of the impact broke his lance, forcing Richard to drop the now useless weapon, drawing his sword and laying about him. Terror cut through even the hardest northern steel as if it were slicing through cloth, though after a few minutes of swinging, Richard's arm began to tire. All around him, men and horses fell, though most of the deaths were on the side of the Odensar knights. Bellowing, Richard kept slashing at all and sundry, hacking at heads, hands, and legs. Snarling, Richard's eyes darted around the battlefield, desperately searching for his brother. He has to be alive, he thought as he cut down another horse. Robert spurred his horse through the enemy ranks, impaling men and after man. Silverfang ran at his side, leaping onto horses and ripping the animals' throats out, causing them to throw their riders to the ground. Snarling, Robert led his cavalry straight through the Odensar ranks, just as the pikemen advanced into the mess, slaughtering the enemy cavalry. Fenris horse archers were picking off anyone that attempted to flee, leaving only dead men and horses littering the plain. Breathing heavily, Robert looked around the battlefield, desperately searching for the Roundhead. Finally, he saw a man with a long spear trying to fight his way to safety, surrounded by a group of horsemen. "Roundhead!" Robert called, throwing his spear at one of the Odensar horses. The weapon skewered the creature right through the neck, causing it to flail around and slam into its fellows. A gap opened, allowing Richard and his men to charge forward and break apart their formation. Sword in hand, Robert spurred his horse toward the Roundhead, just as the other man raised his spear. Ryan attempted to skewer him with his spear, but Robert smacked the tip of the weapon aside and drove over his sword into the neck of his enemy's horse, causing the beast to founder and topple over. The Roundhead yelled in surprise as he was trapped under the mount, heavy armor bearing him to the ground. Robert jumped out of his saddle and raised his sword. "I yield!" Ryan squealed like a little pig as Robert approached him, raising his hand in a warning gesture. "Please, spare me!" "No." Robert kicked the hand aside and drove his sword down into his enemy's unprotected neck. "I'm done suffering your insults." With a quick yank, he pulled his sword free and rushed back to his horse. "Slay the enemy to the last man," he yelled, raising his bloody sword. Out the corner of his eye, Robert noticed a flag bearing the raven and spear lying in the mud. Horseman after horseman rode over the ruined banner, further destroying the sign of House Odensar. From her vantage atop the highest tower of Valor Hall, Kathleen Odensar watched in growing horror as the Fenris host approached, the heads of her husband and older sons adorning the spears of the vanguard. "My brothers will be here soon," he said quietly, clutching her youngest son Tyrus. "We can defeat them." The young boy held against her, watching the host ride toward them with fear in his eyes. Richard's eyes trailed over the fortifications of Valor Hall, casually examining the castle for weaknesses. It was an old structure, older than Snowhold, with tall towers and a round wall enclosing a large, square stone fortress. An assault would be costly, both in time and men. Richard didn't have the ability to waste either. The Tyre brothers would be arriving soon, and Richard wanted to be done here before they arrived. Calmly, Richard turned toward Robert and nodded toward the walls. "Go, at least to give the impression and that we're trying to prevent hostilities." The newly made knight bowed and rode forward, accompanied by a pair of soldiers, each holding a white flag. "Lord Skull," Richard instructed, "get the catapults, get the trebuchets up. I want that castle brought down in a flame by morning." "As you command, Richard," the golden-haired man remarked, riding up to alert the engineers. A half hour later, Robert rode back to his position, expression grim. "She will not surrender," he said quietly. "What did she say precisely?" Richard asked. "She said that wolves are no match for hunters, and that her brothers will be here soon, so we should prepare to die if we stick around for a siege." "Good," Richard remarked. "They've taken to the fields, away from the safety of their castle." "Now what?" Robert asked. "Are we going to assault?" "Oh no," Richard shrugged dismissively. "We're going to bring down the castle with trebuchets at a distance." Robert blinked in surprise, then nodded in acceptance. "What do you want me to do?" "Tell Garm and Hatia to prepare their respective troops," Richard remarked, flexing his hands. "I want our flanks guarded by heavy infantry, particularly pikemen and longbowmen. If they're going to attack us and get here in time to save their sister, they're going to have to use light horse. And light cavalry doesn't do well against prepared heavy infantry." Robert grinned. "She just made a grave error." "Not really." Richard tilted his head. He's expecting us to assault before her brothers get here, which is going to weaken us enough to be taken from behind. Also, we would have gotten caught between the walls and the incoming army, negating our numbers. It's a mind game based on the belief that we're trying to take their castle from them. Richard's fists clenched. "I mean to eradicate houses Odensar and Tyre, root and stem. And if I allow any of them to live, they will come back, as all of these old blood bastards do. They'll leech off our descendants, just as they've leeched off our father." He pointed at Valor Hall. Once we've destroyed the keep, they will surrender, and when they do, we will raid their treasury and take everything. And if the Tyre brothers survive, they won't be able to catch us between a hammer and an anvil. Richard glared at the structure for a moment before turning his eyes toward his brother. I want that castle wiped from the earth. He put out his hand. Will you help me? Robert took the hand and clasped it warmly. I will. Kathleen watched in confusion as the enemy army drew backward to surround a set of hills around Valor Hall. Why aren't they assaulting, she wondered. Within a few hours, several trebuchets surrounded the castle. No, they can't. Kathleen turned away from the window and started rushing into the castle. She had to find her son and get him out. The impact of the boulder crashing into the keep snuffed out her life before she could get it more than a few flights of stairs into the tower.
I like how you hide detail about what's happening in the battle before the battle.
Thank you. Thank you.
It seems like a clever way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I tried to kind of just set up the exact strategy of what was going to be used before it happens, and that way the reader could get a good picture of what's going to happen.
Yeah. If you tried to describe it all in simply action words or like in real time, it would be overly long, and also it would seem kind of disconnected from what's actually happening. So describing the battle plan is, I don't know if I would say I would never have thought of that, but that's an interesting way that I had not thought of.
Yeah, I actually noticed this with, that's usually how villain plans play out in Redwall, but they usually don't play out. I thought it would be an interesting way of kind of just seeing, like, letting out what exactly the battle is going to happen, and then the audience can see almost like they're in a crane shot view.
Yeah, I definitely got that.
Yeah. Cool.
And then you hide consequences after it and before it.
Yeah.
Like what the positive and negatives of certain things happening would be.
Mm-hmm.
It's clever.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other thoughts before we move into the Q&A?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool.
Hang on, I have a question before the Q&A.
Okay.
Oh, that was a joke.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. Alrighty. Let's say for the next 30 minutes or so, the question is open to the chat and guests. Any questions that you all have, please just put them in the chat and we will do our best to answer them. Go wild.
Let me go grab a meal replacement real quick.
I do remember that DB had a remark about battles earlier. Any ideas for fantasy battles?
Well, what I did when I first started writing big battles like that is first of all, I played a Fire Emblem game because you have to keep track of which units you have, how they move, and where they are on the field, or else you lose them.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of how I try to fight, is I will usually try to take either a battle that I've seen in fiction or a battle that I've seen in history and kind of mix and match a bunch of elements from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like this particular battle was utilizing Alexander the Great style tactics in terms of defeating an enemy force by utilizing a Macedonian phalanx pikeman formation along with companion heavy cavalry and horse archers, since I wanted to kind of utilize some different types of tactics in terms of this type of battle, because usually you don't see heavy cavalry being used as kind of a screener for infantry.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of making the enemy think, oh, we're just going to have a cavalry on cavalry fight, as opposed to a kind of hybrid warfare where you're getting hit on the sides by cavalry.
Yeah, and Fire Emblem teaches you to remember where your units are on the battlefield. So if you have a whole bunch of small battles going on in a big battle, it's easier to remember who is doing what where.
Yeah, I quite liked Battle for Middle-earth for that as well. It does a similar thing. Where,
oh man, I love that game.
Yeah, that game's great. I was recently playing Rise of the Witch King, the first battle, and how it works is it's almost like there's an S, a linked S, or like a figure 8 formation of rock formations that block the enemy. So what I did was I knew where the enemy was going to come from. So what I did was I just positioned my army. I split my army in two, then had one army defending one of the objectives and then another army in another section. So when the enemy army split and went into one of the sections, I was able to hit them from behind.
Pincer movement.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they were basically caught within a funnel and basically just slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I had to write that down because I'm just like, I'm using that battle idea for later in my book since that's cool.
Yeah. Well, generally, what I tend to do, because I tend to write very much inside my characters' heads. So the thing I really try to capture about combat. I mean, I say this as someone who's never seen a battle in his life, but the thing I try to really capture is the chaos. Because when the bullets are flying or the arrows are flying all around, you have no idea what's going on. And there's something that really that I realized a lot of the time when I was researching the Civil War, the United States Civil War, that so much of the battles were decided not necessarily by this side had better positions or this side ran out of ammunition. Most of them were decided simply by one side collectively losing their nerve and deciding, oh man, we've lost. And just by deciding that, they lost. So there's that you really have to get that sense of all this mass of humanity collectively deciding what the outcome of the battle is going to be on both sides.
Yeah, because if you believe you've lost, you've already lost. Winning the battle, well, the battle is already halfway won if you think you have a chance. But as soon as you think you don't, you've lost.
We're talking about routing?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, I believe so. Like when Alexander the Great even though Darius had superior numbers, when Alexander the Great broke through his cavalry, when it made a beeline right at Darius, the king fled, causing his army to lose morale.
I can't remember what the character was, but there's actually a story in the Bible about that where it's talking about like they take 300 guys during the night and essentially
Leonidas and the 300 Spartans.
No.
It's
the Bible. He said, yeah.
So right.
Leonidas in the Bible, but they basically like crack pots on the ground, scream, and have flames. So usually, the conventional wisdom is not every person in an army is carrying a torch. So when all of them were carrying torches, Gideon, that's who it was, assumed that the army was bigger, and since the army wasn't bigger, they started killing each other because they assumed that the other people who weren't speaking their languages that were nearby with swords in their hands were the enemy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway,
it's definitely interesting because I don't know. I was thinking, and I'm like, I don't think this is actually a writing challenge I've really taken on before, like a big battle like that, because I tend to be very like character focused. So as far as like the overhead of, well, I might write a character in a battle, the whole big scope of what's going on with everything is not really something I've tried before. It's more like one person's involvement in a battle.
I mean, there actually was so far, I think the only real battle in my repertoire was actually was like a naval battle. And as opposed to the chaos going on, if it's two ships, there's much more unity of purpose because your entire command structure is right there. You have essentially one person who is directing the entire battle, and there's all these just people just bringing information and then orders going out. So something like that, you can get much more of the like the duel between two different captains going back and forth as they slowly try to get an advantage over one and the other.
Yeah, my climactic battle was actually a one-on-one.
Like a duel.
Yeah, a duel to the death.
Ah, yes. Because it's always to the death.
Well, not always.
Yeah.
Back when this RPG system that I've been talking about is one that I started when I was much younger, but my computer deleted a bunch of code and all that shit for it, so I basically dropped it for like 4 or 5 years. And I just decided to come back to it because of Corona. Because I had too much time on my hands. But back when I ran my first campaign, one of my first campaigns, the way I did it, because if you're fighting against like 30 or 40 people, it's going to be kind of confusing as to like how you're actually going to do that in a timely manner. So the way that I group them together is that the more enemies against which you're fighting, the more I treat them as a singular unit. So for example, I would make like fire teams and whatnot that were all working towards a common purpose. With regards to non-interactive medium, I would imagine that you do the same thing as you scale up, only you need at least one character from whose perspective you're actually observing the events that take place. But when it's interactive, you inherently have a perspective from which you're seeing it. So, but yeah, I would imagine that the more people you're dealing with, the more you just group them together as a singular unit working towards a shared goal.
Yeah.
I don't know what Fire Force is.
Maybe like a flamethrower unit?
Oh, no, a fire team is like a portion of the squad. It's a subdivision of a squad.
Yeah.
So like like for example, a very common fire team back in World War II was the machine gunner. So you had a person loading it and you had a person firing it. That was a fire team of 2 people. And if you're doing an L-shaped ambush, you kind of have like groups of fire teams with like on each side of the L, and you can kind of divide it into that. I'm sorry, I didn't know people didn't know that term.
I did. I had to look it up for something.
Yep, I know it. I used to be all over that stuff.
Yeah, I found it while doing research for something that I was writing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our universal excuse. It's for a book.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Charles, you lost me at anime.
What? No.
I'm responding to a comment.
Oh,
Fire Force is basically is basically a fire department anime, but by the same guy who wrote Soul Eater.
I've seen Death Note, Dragon Ball Z, and Naruto.
I know.
Yeah. What other questions from the chat? I think we've kind of gone through a lot of the battle stuff ideas.
Yeah.
What other questions do you have, chat? It's not very big, but we'll answer whatever questions you have for the next, let's say, 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Read any good books lately?
I'm kind of liking the Lycanius trilogy. It's an interesting take on time travel, but like it's definitely the first book is a slow start. I have to say.
Not even gonna lie, everything I've been reading lately is romance novels, so I'm gonna keep it family friendly and not suggest them.
Well,
same.
The most recent stuff.
I refuse to comment on the grounds that I may incriminate myself.
Well, the most recent thing that I read that I ended up dropping had that stupid yin yang imagery for the Force. It was like, and it was, oh, they're gonna do something interesting with Ahsoka from the Clone Wars, and it also had time travel. But then in the latest chapter, it had this, as I just said, the uncreative yin-yang imagery that just doesn't work with the Force. And so I went, nope, I'm not reading this anymore. Which is too bad, because it was well written, and it looked like it was going to be going interesting places.
Charles, I haven't played a new game in like 7 years.
Yeah, I'm still on Warzone 2100.
It's probably going to be another at least 2 years before I get to catch up on the past decade of video games.
So,
There's a
Visitor
question.
Massacre has a question. Speaking on that topic, what are some books that you flat out refused to continue reading?
I got this is something. This is back when I was a wee lad.
Dunn's books.
I seriously doubt that. I started publishing when I was 19.
Yeah. Oh man, I was writing some pretty awful stuff when I was 19.
Oh no, I was making
So
the joke that
I
I was making the joke that never mind, whatever.
Anyways,
I know.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I got this. My uncle. I mentioned this in the first live stream I was a part of. My uncle got me into this author called Dan Brown. Wrote a couple of some interesting books. It was pretty successful. You probably never heard of him, but I read this one book of his called Deception Point, which was about a bunch of a bunch of scientists and politicians and soldiers who discovered this meteorite off in the Arctic that had evidence of an alien life form in it. And as they went along trying to figure out what was up with this, it turns out there was a conspiracy surrounding it to do something with the government and everything. And it was.
Are you describing Michael Crichton's Sphere?
It sounds to me like
I've been describing that as well. Yeah.
It sounds to me like you might be describing the first Transformers movie that I remember watching.
I've since come to realize this is a fairly common plot form. But yeah, so I read that book and I thought it was pretty good. And then I read another book by Dan Brown called Angels and Demons, which was about a conspiracy about the Catholic Church, and I thought this is really good too. Then I read another book called Digital Fortress, also by Dan Brown, and it was about a conspiracy within the U.S. government. And I thought this is awesome. This is the most amazing book I've ever read. Why isn't this a movie now? It's even more relevant. And then I read The Da Vinci Code, and I got a third of the way through the book, and I realized it was the same book. I had read the same book 4 fucking times. But what did I know? I was 12.
So the only book series that I have started that I have refused to finish is actually Sword of Truth. So, for context, so I read the first 4 books and in that series, well, first 5, then I started the 6th, and I'm just like, I'm not really interested in this anymore. Nothing really happens. Like, people complain that nothing happens in Wheel of Time, but nothing happens in the Sword of Truth series. And 5 was so awful because it had just so many tangents and side stories that didn't really have anything to do with the story. It was so dumb. And I just, and also, Sword of Truth, is, well, part of this was, I watched some of Daniel Green's videos on Terry Goodkind, and I was just like, wow, I had never noticed that this guy relies on convenience and plot contrivance all the time to solve his things. So, a main character needs to get somewhere, give him a dragon. I kid you not, that happens. And, he figures out a magic thing that protects his mind during torture, and he can kind of dissociate himself and give a piece of his identity there, and it's just, oh my gosh, it's stupid. And each book follows the same stupid formula. Meandering plot that, doesn't seem to have a point. Deus Ex Machina, end of book. Then next book, fallout from Deus Ex Machina. Then new Deus Ex Machina comes in, and then the next one is the fallout from that Deus Ex Machina. And it happens over and over and over again for 5 frickin' books. And it keeps going from the Wikipedia synopsis I've read.
Oh dear.
Yeah, my only familiarity with the Sword of Truth series is the TV series Legend of the Seeker.
The TV show is better than the books.
That reminds me of that. It reminds me of that. I fucking love this line where that Jay said, where they get the anti-MacGuffin.
Pretty much.
That sounds like a thing that should not be a thing, but is regardless.
Yeah, and it's just also Terry Goodkind himself is an ass. He is a terrible person. I am very intrigued to read one of his interview comments where he says he's asked who is one of the most cutting edge people publishing right now, and he says Ayn Rand, who had been dead for 30 years.
Well,
wow.
To be fair, she lives on in all of our hearts.
I suppose.
Man.
And then
well, I mean, at least she had some very unkind things to say about Ronald Reagan, which, I mean, earns her a little bit of redemption in my book.
Well, let's go with
Well-
that. Cool.
Well, for me, it's the Disney Star Wars books. They completely dropped the ball on the movies, and people keep telling me, "Oh, the books are better. The books are better." Yeah, well, they fumbled on the movies. What makes you think I'm going to trust them to write the books?
Yeah. Also, it's just like he says stuff like, "I don't write fantasy. I write deep, emotional human stories." It's like, no, your characters are really shallow. The characters in TV show are actually better written and more interesting than your characters in your book.
Yeah,
I'm very sorry.
and it's truly sad because my favorite books of the Star Wars expanded universe are the Timothy Zahn books, and he's writing for Disney. If I trusted Disney, I'd pick up his books if none of the other ones. But the way it is, they have him under so many restrictions and constraints that I don't trust them to be able to let him write.
Yeah.
See, the thing is that books have editors.
Well, yeah, but it's like they let the movies get away with everything. But with the books, they go, "Oh, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. You can throw that away, we're not going to let you do that either."
See, you have to think about the films as a unique avant-garde experience that deconstructs the very nature of storytelling.
Oh no.
Yeah, I've already decided that I'm never ever going to watch The Last Jedi. And I'm not going to watch Rise of Skywalker either. They somehow tricked me into watching The Force Awakens. They tricked me into buying Rogue One after the fact because I wasn't going to go watch it in theaters. And I'm glad I didn't waste money doing that, because the only thing worth watching in that entire movie is the last 5 or so minutes where Vader gets to be Vader.
Yeah, it's
the thing that really galls me about Rogue One was that it negates all the stuff that was going on in the Star Wars radio dramatization. They had a perfect encapsulation of the story that filled out a little bit of the story, a little bit further out in this way, a little bit further out in that way, and they had it on this PBS radio broadcast, and it just added just enough more of the story that you could tell something was really going on, and then all of a sudden Rogue One sweeps in and says, "Oh hey, by the way, it's coming in a completely different direction." Well, this new direction, I like the old direction.
So,
yeah, that's...
We have another person hopping on.
How I feel, so...
Yeah.
Looks like we got ourselves a batch of shinies, Commander. Your armor, it's shiny and new, just like you.
I heard someone bitching about Star Wars books.
I was gonna say, this is what happens when you talk about Star Wars.
Look,
you summon
I
shiny.
smelt some Star Wars. You summon me when you start talking about Star Wars.
Yeah,
I'm here to
In my
write about
defense, I
some
was
books.
bitching about the radio production.
So, what's your opinion on Star Trek?
Well, you see, Star Trek is a very good franchise until, they fucked it all up. They only went and fucked it up.
God.
Yeah, I agree with
That's what your
Charles.
profile picture is from, right?
No,
Oh, yeah,
that's a
of course.
clone trooper.
The
Oh,
clones
Stargate.
from the-
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the clones from Stargate, of course.
Yeah.
I didn't even know
So-
that the radio dramas were a thing, so I couldn't really be upset about that, you know?
I didn't know anything about Star Wars radio dramas. But anyway, talking from books, fuck me. I've read a lot of Star Wars books, and I can tell you one thing. The new ones, if anyone tells you the new books are better or they're in any way good, that's a fucking lie.
I
I'll
thought
tell you
so.
right now. It's like people, the amount of times I've had a conversation with people, it's like, no, you need to go and read the books to understand these films. No, fuck off. I'm not going to read these books. It's like, why do I need to go read a third-party material to understand the actual source material, the film?
Yeah, exactly. The movies should stand on their own.
You've also got the problem with the environment which they have to write the books in. So the things about the expanded universe books, they had a blank open canvas to do whatever the hell they wanted. Timothy Zahn didn't have anything to stick by other than what was there. So the sky was the limit, essentially. And that meant that he could touch on as many things as he wanted to do. He could do as much as he wanted. It was a blank canvas. But the problem is with the environment that you have with the Star Wars Story Police, you have... I'm not kidding. That's what the story group is. They're a story police that you can't. You can only do certain things within other media, and they let the films do anything they want. When it gets to any other material, they don't treat seriously. It's like, no, you're not allowed to do this, that, or the other. So, like, if you read the Thrawn books, while they're like the new ones anyway, the new ones which recently came out, which is Thrawn and Thrawn Alliances, they're well written. But they're still limited, and they pale in comparison when comparing to things like Heir to the Empire, because there's just so much limitation. It feels boring. It feels dumbed down. It's like you're... I don't... What's the word I'm looking for?
Like Thrawn isn't Thrawn anymore?
No. He's still Thrawn. He feels like Thrawn. He's much more like Thrawn than he was in Rebels. But the problem is that, when the narrative doesn't really feel like it's going anywhere, there's no consequences.
Yes.
There's no it can't go anywhere because it has to be ended off to then be contained in its own little thing, so it can't have any wide consequences for the galaxy. When Thrawn coming back or creating a new empire was a big fucking deal to the New Republic, so that there was huge stakes and huge consequences, even to things like limited. I suppose, limited is the word I'm looking for when talking about the new books.
Yeah.
That's why I rant about Star Wars books.
I feel like back when I used to read and play Star Wars Expanded stuff, that part of the freedom offered was that they often set it in a completely different time period, so they weren't constrained by like, oh, this is happening in the same galaxy as the films, but it can't be significant enough to actually affect the films.
Or it takes place in a completely different location.
So, like, it's after, or it's before, or it sets place. Like, so if you look at things like Clone Wars, obviously, the stories take place in different places, even though it's between films. It doesn't feel limited by any means because it has this ability to go anywhere and do anything it wants to while staying within the films, and it gets to expand upon so much lore and material and tell so many stories. It kind of feels like the opposite for the books.
Yeah. Under Lucas, there was so much freedom to do whatever you wanted within the limits of the very vague limits of what Star Wars was.
To be fair, that's... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And now it's like they're messing with the lore, which was fine the way it was, and they're going, oh, it has to be this way now. And all the new writers that are writing fanfic.
But do you want to know what the funny part is that they don't actually care about the novels and whatever they're doing in the novels. Because the movies will often openly contradict it because they don't care about what's in written in the book. There are several things which are... So in The Rise of Skywalker, The Last Jedi, and The Force Awakens, in each novelization... So there are things in The Force Awakens novelization which is contradicted by Last Jedi film. And then in the Last Jedi novel, there are things which are contradicted by the Rise of Skywalker film. Even then, the Rise of Skywalker film also contradicts so much of other fucking material because it railroads in saying, oh, well, Palpatine made a clone, or anyone can be a Force ghost, or this, that, and the other, raise all the Jedi.
To be fair, those films contradicted themselves.
Yes, they
Yes, because they're a horrifyingly stupid and asinine, odious mess.
It's like, oh yeah, we totally have a plan for this. Oh no, we didn't have a plan for this.
Well, they did have a plan, but the second guy threw out the plan.
Nah,
And the first guy threw out whatever the second guy was planning.
I don't think either of them had that much of a big plan.
They had Lucas's plan.
Yeah, they had
They
Lucas's
should have
plan.
done with that.
I think that would probably be better.
Why didn't they just adapt the Yuzhen Vong story?
Yuzang Vong is very what's it called? I don't know the word now. Controversial. That's it. It's very controversial within the Star Wars fandom.
The thing about that, though, is that still would have been better than what we would have got.
But J.J. Abrams wants he wanted something that was his own. So he didn't want to adapt any kind of story. But ironically enough, he just made a copy of New Hope. But that's what he wanted. He wanted a carbon copy of New Hope because that's what he likes to do. He likes to come in, write a film, and it's just a soft reboot to do the exact same things again.
I don't think that they possibly could have had a plan, because if they had a plan, Disney would have been aware of it. And if Disney were aware of it, they wouldn't have let Rian Johnson toss it all out.
Yeah.
I think if they did have a plan, they wouldn't have cared because they viewed Disney as just a pure cash cow. And so Star Wars is a pure cash cow. They could just do anything the hell they want with it. And Star Wars would just keep going because it's just a franchise with infinite power and money. And then they realized, oh shit, we've actually fucked this all. We've crashed into the ground.
They could have made so many movies. There were hundreds hundreds of comics.
And do you know one of the worst parts that I hate the most? The fact that in 7 years we have had 3 games released. In context, so before the Disney buyout, we had at least one Star Wars video game being released a year. At least one. Every year, consistently. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and now it's... Why are they so rare?
Because EA has the exclusive license and they don't want to put too much money in Star Wars for some reason. So
because if you made Rey the protagonist of a video game, then you would instantly win.
So actually, I take that back. There was the Last Jedi Lego game as well, but the Force Awakens Lego game. But do we really count that as a Lego game? The Last Jedi Lego. No, so the Force Awakens Lego.
So
with Last Jedi DLC.
So any other books that y'all have started and not finished before we ask
Aftermath
for another question? Oh, obviously, it's Chuck Wendig.
Before we move on, I think it was Carl Saylor. You said that Rian Johnson threw out J.J. Abrams' plan. You got to remember that J.J. Abrams is someone which he's all about his little mystery box. He's all about his mysteries. And he said, well, yeah, a good mystery is great, but the problem is that you need something behind those mysteries. But J.J. Abrams is like, oh, well, you know what? I'm never ever going to plan what's behind these mysteries because the mystery itself is more important, which is a stupid asinine.
No, it isn't. It's the
No, it isn't.
He
don't
generally
really question
thinks
your story unless you intend to answer it in a very certain way, and you can foreshadow it.
Listen, guys.
You can look at what he said, or J.J. Abrams is saying, and he's unironically saying that the mystery is more important than what's actually inside the box, which is why he calls it the mystery box.
Listen, guys, Star Wars isn't a science lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never mind. We haven't gotten a question.
For me, it was the jungle, and I was supposed to for school, but I just couldn't. Well, okay, I skipped to the end and read the end to see, because I had my suspicions, and I was like, yeah, this is just lots of people die, rats eat people's faces, and that's why I like socialism, which is all well and good, but I didn't want to read it.
I had to have a question. Well, what's just randomly? What's one of your most memorable stories in books you've read?
Ooh, I would have to say Dalinar Kholin in the Stormlight Archive.
Does it have to be a book?
Well, I was more talking about read stories, but I guess if you can't think of anything you've read, then I'll just think about something else.
Go ahead, Dunn. I interrupted.
Oh no, you're fine. I think that partially it's just Dalinar Kholin. It's because you get to know this man over 3 books in terms of who he is in present day, and you hear about his backstory throughout. But then when you get to the 3rd book, Oathbringer, you get to see what he was like and the arc that he went on throughout his life, and kind of some of the really bad things that he did that led him on the course of trying to become a better man. And he has to face a lot of the consequences of those things in the 2nd book, in the 3rd book. It's really, really cool. But it's also like you get to see this freaking bad A dude just wrecking stuff in his past, and it's so cool.
I have pretty bad ADHD, so it's very hard for me to read books because I'll read like a paragraph and then I'm like, wait, I don't remember anything I just read. So
yeah.
Usually I have to get an audiobook along with it, but I'd say when I was younger, the first books that I ever actually wanted to read was the Del Toro Quest books.
I would say the one, so it's kind of like within a book, so the book that stuck with me the most recently is Alan Moore wrote a book called Jerusalem, which is all over the place and kind of controversial as to whether or not it's good or awful, but within the disjointedness of all these different characters and all the stuff that's happening, there's a story about dead children, basically, and the dead gang and the adventures that they go on and trying to help this living boy get back to life. And yeah, I don't know, it just really stuck with me in the middle of all of this chaos that's going on in that book.
You're goddamn right, Charles Calkins.
Del Toro Quest, did you like it or dislike it?
As a kid, I loved it. I don't know if it's actually any good, but
I read through it, and it's just like I couldn't understand some of the things that it was going for. I wish that there was a bigger fan base, some more accurate Wikipedia synopsis, so I could like go back and actually look at it, because one of my problems is that sometimes when I read things, especially if it's a story, I won't fully retain some of the details because my eyes skip over it. So that's why I listen to books generally.
You're a writer that listens to books.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah. For my money, I had to say it's got to be the Silmarillion, just the Silmarillion. You know, because growing up, my mom read to me from The Hobbit. When I was 6 and 7, and of course later on you read Lord of the Rings, on your own, choosing to continue in that world, and then when I was in high school, I finally tracked down a copy of this book I'd only heard about called The Silmarillion. And it took a while to get into it at first, but just the whole history, it's not just a single story, but like I mentioned before with the Saga of Recluse, but it's all these different characters coming together to create a larger story through their own stories. Just the idea that you can have something that big.
Yes.
Also, fuck you, Fëanor. You are an asshole.
Yeah, he kind
of
is.
Stop creeping on your niece.
Yes.
If there's one thing that describes the Silmarillion, it's definitely that it's big.
Yeah.
And that's the prequel to Lord of the Rings, right? And The Hobbit.
Yep.
Yeah, it really is. It's odd because it wasn't released until after he died. But Tolkien was writing the Silmarillion even before he wrote The Hobbit.
Is it technically a prequel? I thought it was like kind of more of like a history book based in the Tolkien universe.
It's kind of a combination of both.
Yeah.
Like it.
It's difficult to describe. It's like it's sort of like a history book, but it's told in a narrative format.
Mm.
Yeah. There's no like internal dialogue as far as I can remember. But
it's Tolkien dialogue. The characters speak in paragraphs.
That is
there's not so much a back and forth.
Yeah. The books that I most remember wanting to read myself are the Thrawn Trilogy and the Linus Quartet, which I had my mother read the first book to me, and then I just dove into the three after that.
You guys have all these parents who read books to you. I remember having to read dinosaur books to my dad.
Oh, yeah. My mom read me. I think first it was like Ender's Game and a little bit of Dune. Magic Treehouse.
When I was young, my fucking parents read me Captain Underpants.
Yeah,
remember those?
Yeah, I used to read those. I would get them from the Scholastic Book Fair.
Got a tra-la-la, you got to flip these pages back and forth to make them do the actions.
Yeah.
Oh,
I ripped so many of those books to pieces trying to do that animation thing.
It's gonna. I gotta do it really fast.
I think my dad tricked me into doing the reading because he pretended he couldn't pronounce the dinosaur names.
Oh.
Although I don't think he actually could, but whatever.
My mom read to me, but I always got so impatient for the story to keep going because she'd be like, nope, no more than 1 hour a night. That I just, really little was like, okay, well, I got to teach myself to read now.
One of the books, just to finish the question, I think everyone else has answered but me. So I'm going to kind of cheat and say 2, because one of the stories which has kind of stuck with me since I was a teenager was Of Mice and Men. It's pretty basic choice to pick, because I know it's a very well renowned, but it's a book which has always kind of stuck with me since I started reading it in English, because you had to write so many fucking things about that book in English just to pass a grade. But there's something about it, I'm not quite sure how to describe it. It just has this grit, and just I haven't read it in so long, so I can't describe quite much about it. Have any of you read Of Mice and Men?
Oh yeah, yep.
Well, I pretended to
School
read
assignment,
it.
same as everyone.
Yeah, you're not the only one who had to read it for school.
I read the Spark Notes and then passed all my assignments about it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good book, and it's got a very sad ending. Also, just a book I read more recently, which I absolutely adore, despite it's pretty flawed in how it ends. Star Wars Death Troopers. I've never read a horror book before I read that one, and it is just dripping with so much atmosphere. It is just such a thrill to read, and it's such a kind of a more unique take on zombies, as these zombies are actually like a hive mind and they're intelligent. It's
Like
I think just the atmosphere, just the atmosphere itself is just something which I hadn't experienced reading a book before, which I have to commend it. But it's got a really fucking lazy ending. It's like, oh look, it just kind of ends. It's like, oh, the problem solves itself. It's okay. Nah. You did it really well up until that point, and it was also a character.
Wait, Shiny, I think I just noticed something.
Mm-hmm.
Are you telling me that you like Star Wars? I hadn't picked up on that before.
Nah, and Star Wars isn't really my thing. I don't know. It just wasn't made for me. I'm a 20-year-old white dude.
Yeah, I mean, I was always more of a BSG person. And
If you're into those hive mind zombie things, then you should investigate the Flood and that. Also, that I can't remember what it was even called, a thorium from Mass Effect, something like that.
I've played Halo games, so I do know about Flood, and I played Mass Effect as well. Mass Effect's a fun, great game.
Don't actually
just
read the
ignore
book. Don't actually read the Halo book, The Flood, because it's garbage.
I did.
It was more the
I regret it.
atmosphere of Death Troopers, which I really loved. And then the books I really hate, just Aftermath. I've got a very much a need to burn that trilogy with a lighter.
Okay. So
If I ever learn burning physics in Houdini, I'm gonna recreate that book in 3D and just set it alight.
Nice.
Alrighty. I think we have time for one more question, and then we got to close out. So chat, throw out your questions, and we'll pick the best one, whichever you want. And I'll just okay, Charles Calkins has a question. Shoot. And while he's typing, I'm actually have an announcement. I just barely finished writing Queen of Spring. It ended up being 101K words, and I'm going to start editing it over the next couple of months so that I can put it out sometime in September, I'm hoping.
Fun stuff.
Nice.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, I've been working on this one for 2 years, but I wrote about 20 or 30K words this week.
Wow.
Damn.
Yay!
you.
Very good.
Yeah, I decided I'm going to finish this dang book by the end of the month if it kills me, and I managed to do it. It took...
Without killing yourself, too.
Yeah,
That's
so
where you're wrong. Turns
Just
out
give
he's
it
a
time.
zombie.
Yes,
Why do you think his avatar is different?
Ooh, that's actually a very good question. I think that's... What was it like to get published for the first time? Carl, would you like to take this?
Well, it was actually my process was just really haphazard because I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But it really, I mean, first of all, obviously, it felt like an accomplishment. You know, you finally have this complete product that you can sell, and you are at least moderately proud of. But afterwards, of course, you of course realize, of course, what am I going to do next? You know, sometimes you have another, maybe it's a series planned, you have another book queued up. And then you look back and you realize, you know, this took 4 years of my life to get this this thing written. And I'm looking at another 4 years of my life. Where am I going to be in that 4 years? And well, it's only been a year and a half since then, and I've already completely blown all those expectations out of the water. I've moved. I've gotten a new job. There have been multiple shutdown orders in my town, and it's just realizing, you know, I'm going to remember that moment for the rest of my life, and I'm probably not going to remember the rest of them because, you know, by the time I get this second book finished out, it's just going to be, oh yeah, that was number 2. So yeah, it's.
If it makes you feel any better, you'll probably remember the last book you write for the rest of your life.
Perhaps.
So for me, I believe, so when I first published my book, my Lost Legion, back in 2015, I was like, I set a goal that I wanted to publish a book before I left on my mission. And so I had finished the second book and was halfway through the third, and I wrote it, and I was like, I feel like I'm ready. So I went online, licensed a cover, and then put it out online. And I left from my mission about a week later, so I was just like kind of like stressed and working on that, just thinking about that. And then, like, as time went on, it was just like I kept getting, my mom and dad just kept sending me like these really, really good reviews of my book. They were saying this is really good stuff, and I kept getting the occasional check from Amazon that I was able to support myself on my mission using my my book money. And then it was kind of just like, then it just felt like an accomplishment. Every time I would finish a book, finish editing it, and then I was able to put it out, it was just a new feeling of like, I accomplished it finally. And then it would be like, alrighty, now I got to get on to the next project. Let's start this adventure, baby. That's kind of how it was for me. So for you guys, what do you think that it will feel like for you guys when you're finally published? Those who haven't yet gotten to that point.
Well, obviously, I published 10,000 books.
Impressive, Shiny. How did you find
I
the
instantly
time?
believe you.
Each book is exactly 1 page long.
Brilliant.
Nice.
Genius.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Brilliant.
I'm not sure. Go ahead.
I imagine it'll be a dream come true for me.
I'm not sure exactly what I expect because I would say probably the closest thing to publishing a book that I'll have is RPG system on which I'm working, as well as the modules that will come with it. So I imagine that basically anywhere from like 10 to 10,000 people will get it, probably closer to 10. But I'm not sure. I don't know if I'll judge the success of what I've done based off of how many people actually download and use it, or if I'll be proud of simply having done it. I imagine that I'll actually probably base it more off of people actually enjoy it, because otherwise it's probably not as good as I thought it was. Or I'm not as lucky as I wished I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really say because every creative endeavor up till this point for me, for the most part, at least things that I've shared, has been live performance, which, you know, has that same kind of, okay, you're done with it, what was the response to it kind of thing. But it's also a live response right there in the moment that's kind of, and it doesn't live on like a book does either, you know, like it's there and then it's gone. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see because I'm sure it'll be very different from anything I've experienced thus far when my work is done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess I hadn't considered something like that. I suppose you could technically consider a project on which I worked for a company being like completed as when I was the team lead. So I guess that counts. I don't know. It felt cool. It was good.
I remember working on a group project in college. That was nice. That was a nice sense of accomplishment.
I'm not sure why it is, but I always seem to be the de facto team leader of whatever project I end up being on. I'm working with 6 other people at this new at this new job, all of which are the same position as me. Yet somehow I'm the person that people look to, even though I'm not even the best at coding.
Well, it's not. Leading a team is not necessarily about being the best at everything the team is doing. It's about organizing. It's about keeping everyone on the same page. It's a much
Also,
more
if you
of a
pretend to know
social.
what you're doing, then that goes a long way as well. Bit of confidence, bit of inspiring leadership, inspiring goodness in others. All that kind of crap.
It might be that I'm like actually strong and physically competent, considering I work in the tech field. That might just give me a natural, what's the word?
Advantage?
I don't know if it's an advantage. What's magneticism? I'm not sure.
Animal magnetism.
Like, something like that. Maybe it's that I'm an oddity. I don't think there's a lot of people who do powerlifting and can beat the shit out of almost everyone they come across.
I got a friend out in California who is exactly like that.
Yeah.
So
he does MMA and whatnot.
Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's really sweet, Wolby. I'm glad.
I don't like traditional Muay Thai as a I think it's good as a foundation, but I think the tall stance is actually kind of not well adapted to MMA because wrestlers exist.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the first thing about Muay Thai myself, so I'll take your word for that.
That's what I was hoping. I don't want people to call me out and then I sound like an idiot.
Yeah, me too.
Alrighty. Well, I think that's all the time that we have for today. If you guys would like to have another Q&A at another time, please hop on the Discord and let me know. I would love to interact with you guys and be able to bring on a bunch of guests and just have a Q&A where anybody can ask whatever question they want. Alrighty. Well, thank you all. And to anybody who wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of what was said, I have this.
And if you don't like it, no offense, but you have boring taste, and I don't want to be friends with you.
Oh, wait, did you pay
you,
for StreamYards?
Yes, I did.
Oh, so now you can do all the clips and such.
Yep.
It gets better. It gets fucking better. Okay.
Oh yeah.
There's plenty of clips to steal from LitDev because he's got all those submissions.
He's got a vast library.
Yep. I go through and I just I'll just watch that Discord page in its entirety when I'm bored. People will submit funny stuff.
Some people submit like some really good stuff, but the problem is it's not like good for like actually using on stream.
Right, like when would this be applicable?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
things like burning down, I don't know, houses to get rid of termites works a lot better rather than then he set it on fire.
I'm actually kind of surprised he hasn't found a use for. I want to make them angry yet.
What's that from?
Game of Thrones, Season 6, Episode 9.
Yeah,
we
found
that.
we
What's your
found
timestamp
that
on?
on.
What?
We found that
I
on
don't
one
know
of
the
the streams
timestamp. I
that we
never
did.
watched the full
Remember?
episode.
Oh, I was just making a joke because you were so specific. I was like, oh, well.
I wish I would know the timestamp, otherwise I would have been very impressive. But no, I do not have the timestamp memorized.
Slacker.
That is what you fail.
Indeed. I have other
Yes.
timestamps memorized, but not for that one. Anyway,
Unfortunately.
thank you, everybody. We will see you next Tuesday. We are doing a Why Fanfiction is Cool stream on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, we'll either do another Q&A or a writing tutoring session for anybody who would like to come on and just chat with me or my guests. Anyway, just let me know in the Discord. The links are in the description below. Please come on. I'm excited to chat with you guys more, see how you write, and how have you guys help other writers in the Discord, or be that you experienced, beginners, or just as interested in writing. Anyway, I will catch you all later. Thank you. Bye.
Peace out. I'm going to go to
Bye,
the gym and get
guys.
Corona.
See ya.